The rain pattered against the window, a relentless torrent that mirrored the turbulence in Sarah's heart. She stood in the dim light of her living room, staring at the empty corner where a dog bed awaited its occupant. It was a stark reminder of the void in her life, an ever-present echo of loneliness that enveloped her. After months of longing, searching, and endless online browsing, she had finally made the decision to adopt a dog. Yet, standing there, the weight of her anticipation felt like a lead blanket, pressing down on her chest. What if it wasn't what she expected? What if the dog didn't like her? Or worse, what if she couldn't handle the responsibility? Doubts plagued her thoughts like a swarm of buzzing flies. But the thought of coming home to an empty apartment was worse, a fate she could no longer bear. Suddenly, the doorbell rang, jolting her from her reverie. Heart racing, she rushed to the door, flinging it open to reveal a smiling shelter volunteer holding a wriggling bundle of energy. "Meet Jake!" she exclaimed, and before Sarah could brace herself, the golden retriever puppy broke free from the volunteer's grasp and bounded straight into her arms. Jake's fur was warm and soft, a golden swirl of fur that felt like sunshine against her skin. His wide brown eyes sparkled with curiosity, and his tail wagged with such fervor that it nearly knocked a lamp off the side table. In that instant, all her worries evaporated. The weight in her chest lifted, replaced by a rush of exhilaration that coursed through her veins. This was her moment. This was the beginning. "Hey, little guy," she crooned, cradling Jake against her chest. His playful yips and delighted wriggles made her laugh, and she felt a smile spread across her face, a smile that had been absent for far too long. The shelter had told her he was spirited and adventurous, but looking into his eyes, she felt an instant connection, as if they were meant to find each other. As the volunteer explained Jake's background and quirks, Sarah barely heard a word. All she could focus on was the warmth radiating from the puppy in her arms. Jake was more than just a dog. He was a beacon of hope, illuminating the shadows of her solitary life. She eagerly signed the adoption papers, her heart swelling with joy as she officially welcomed Jake into her world. Once inside, Jake dashed into every corner of the small apartment, sniffing and exploring with reckless abandon. He bounded from room to room, tail an unceasing metronome of excitement. Sarah watched in amusement as he skidded to a halt in front of the kitchen, eyes wide with possibilities. Almost instinctively, she reached for a box of treats and shook it, eliciting an excited bark from Jake. He bounced around her, an embodiment of pure joy. That evening, they settled on the couch together. Jake curled up beside her, his soft breathing creating a sense of tranquility that enveloped them both. Sarah ran her fingers through his fur, marveling at how something so small could bring so much happiness. It felt surreal. For the first time in years, she felt complete, as if she had finally found the missing piece of her life. The next day, she decided it was time for their first adventure trip to the nearby park. With a bright blue leash in hand and Jake's favorite toy slung over her shoulder, she felt a burst of excitement. Everything felt different now. The world outside seemed more vibrant, more alive. As they strolled through the park, Jake led the way, his nose to the ground and tail wagging wildly. Children laughed and played on swings, couples walked hand in hand, and the warm sun filtered through the leaves, creating a mosaic of light and shadow. For a moment, Sarah could forget about her worries and enjoy the simple pleasure of being outside. She let Jake off the leash in a fenced area designated for dogs. He took off like a bolt of lightning, the joy radiating from him infectious. The other dogs, some big, some small, joined in the fray, bounding and chasing each other under the watchful eyes of their owners. Sarah couldn't help but laugh as she watched Jake play, his enthusiasm unrestrained. It was as if he had been waiting for this moment his entire life. Time slipped away as they frolicked in the sun. Sarah felt a sense of belonging wash over her. For too long, she had been a solitary figure, navigating a world devoid of connection. Now, as she watched Jake play, she realized that he was more than just a Peeth, he was a companion, a friend who would stand by her side through whatever life threw their way. After an exhausting but exhilarating afternoon, they returned home, both worn out and filled with joy. As they settled on the couch once more, Jake snuggled close to Sarah, his head resting on her lap. She stroked his soft fur, feeling grateful for this unexpected twist of fate. But just as tranquility enveloped them, a sudden thought struck her. What would she do if Jake got into trouble? Her mind raced with scenarios of chewed furniture and runaway escapades. Just as she was about to spiral into anxiety, Jake's soft, warm body jolted her back to reality. He shifted, let out a contented sigh, and promptly fell asleep, reminding her that for now, everything was perfect as the days turned into weeks. Their bond grew stronger, woven together with threads of laughter, play, and unconditional love. Jake was no longer just a puppy. He had become a vital part of her life, a partner who watched over her and shared in her adventures. Little did she know that their journey was just beginning, and each day with Jake would bring new surprises, some wild, some chaotic, and some utterly crazy. But for Sarah, the most important thing was that she was no longer alone. She had found her companion, and together, they would face whatever the world had in store. In that moment, as she gazed down at her sleeping partner, Sarah knew her life was about to change in ways she could never have imagined. Today marked the start of an adventure, one they would share, filled with laughter, mischief, and a bond that would defy the very meaning of friendship. The mishap, the days sped by with an exhilarating rhythm that matched Jake's boundless energy. Sarah found herself wrapped in a whirlwind of affection and antics, and she couldn't remember the last time she had felt so alive. Each morning began with a chorus of excited barks from Jake, his tail thumping against the floor like a metronome. Mornings quickly transformed into playful chaos with her attempts to put on her shoes, while Jake tried to steal them, more often than not leaving her in giggles. One particularly sunny Saturday morning, Sarah decided it was time for a bigger adventure. The park had become a comforting routine, but she wanted to explore beyond its familiar boundaries. With a firm resolve and a sense of excitement bubbling within her, she loaded Jake into her car, his long ears flapping in the wind as they drove to a nearby hiking trail that wound up into the hills. As they arrived, Sarah marveled at the beauty around them. The sun painted the landscape in vibrant hues of green, flecked with the colorful wildflowers that dotted the trail. Jake barked happily from the back seat, instinctively sensing that they were about to embark on something special. Sarah's heart soared at the thought of all the new sights and smells awaiting them. Stepping out of the car, Sarah felt a sprinkle of nervous excitement. It was more than just the two of them today. There would be other hikers, families, and dogs. Would Jake behave? She knew he was friendly, but she also knew how unpredictable puppies could be. Pushing her apprehension aside, she took a deep breath and unclipped Jake's leash. The moment his paws hit the ground, he darted off like a bolt of lightning, his nose to the earth as he explored this uncharted territory. Both exhilarated and slightly panicked, Sarah hurried after him, calling his name, her heart pounding in excitement and anxiety. "Jake, come back!" she laughed, a mix of joy and concern in her voice. As she chased after him, she watched Jake weave through the underbrush, his golden fur glinting like sunlight as sunlight streamed through the trees. Suddenly, he skidded to a stop just as a tall, scruffy dog came into view. It was as if Jake flipped a switch, shifting from exuberant explorer to playful competitor. Without warning, he bounded toward the other dog, his tail wagging furiously. The scruffy dog reacted with equal enthusiasm, and the two of them engaged in a lively game of chase, running in circles around Sarah. It was a thrilling sight, their joyous barks ringing through the air like music. But Sarah's happiness quickly turned to mild concern as she realized they were heading toward a rocky area near the edge of the trail. "Jake, stop," she shouted, panic lacing her voice, but it was too late. The two dogs collided, paws tangled, and they went tumbling into a patch of bushes just off the path. A loud crash echoed through the woods and Sarah's heart dropped. She rushed over, fear gripping her. When she reached the bushes, she found Jake climbing out, his face covered in leaves and twigs, but otherwise unharmed. He looked up at her, confusion swirling in his creamy brown eyes, then wiggled his body as if to shake off the incident. Relief flooded through Sarah, and amidst her anxiety, she laughed at how absurd he looked. Just as she thought the chaos had subsided, a commotion broke out behind her. The scruffy dog had taken off into the woods, its owner yelling in a futile attempt to call it back. "Come here, Rufus," the woman shouted, panic evident in her voice. The dog, however, continued to dart off the trail, its tail wagging wildly as it chased after a squirrel. "Oh no," Sarah muttered, watching as the scuffle disrupted the peace of their beautiful day. Just as the aircraft of chaos seemed to settle down, Jake's eyes widened. He spotted Rufus running away, and with a spark of mischief igniting within him, Jake took off as well, darting into the underbrush. "Jake, no," she cried, urgency weaving its way into her tone. Trembling with both fear and adrenaline, she sprinted after him, heart racing. How had their wonderful day turned into disarray so quickly? She could hear distant laughter and shouts from other hikers as she desperately searched for her mischievous companion. The trail twisted and turned as she pursued Jake, her breath coming in gasps. Each rustle of leaves seemed amplified in her ears, the normal tranquility of the woods now tinged with a sense of dread. They moved deeper into the thicket, and that's when she lost sight of Jake altogether. "Jake," she yelled, her voice carrying an edge of panic. The silence that descended was deafening. It felt like moments turned to hours as she wandered through the vegetation. Thoughts racing. What if she couldn't find him? What if he got hurt? The weight of dread wrapped firmly around her. Finally, she stumbled into a clearing, and there he was. Golden fur glistening in the sun, standing proudly beside the scruffy dog, Rufus. They were both panting heavily, their tails wagging, oblivious to the chaos they had caused. Relief washed over her, but it was quickly overshadowed by a feeling of frustration. "Jake," she called again, walking toward them. The scruffy dog's owner was already approaching, her face a mix of relief and exasperation. "Thank goodness you found him," she gasped, finally catching up. "Rufus can be such a handful." With a sheepish smile, Sarah knelt down to reclaim her runaway. "You little rascal," she murmured as she reached for Jake, who instantly nuzzled against her, oblivious to the trouble he had caused. This was the moment she realized how truly unpredictable a dog could be. She shot a look at the other owner, who was chuckling as well. "Dogs, right?" she sighed, shaking her head. "I had no idea he would be so energetic today." "Welcome to the club," the woman said with a grin. "Rufus has a knack for finding trouble." Jake seemed to share a knowing look with Rufus as their tails continued to wag in playful camaraderie. Just moments later, Sarah left the clearing, leading Jake back down the trail, his exuberance unchanged. As they returned to the main path, she took a deep breath, allowing her heart to calm. Meanwhile, fatigue began to settle in. The excitement of the day had taken its toll, and she decided maybe they should cut the hike short and head home. She had loved exploring, but her heart still raced from the unexpected chase. Back in the car, Jake flopped down on the back seat, panting and content. Sarah glanced in the rearview mirror at his fluffy, happy face. Sure, they had encountered a crazy situation, but moments like these deepened their bond. They were partners in crime, navigating life's unexpected twists together. Pulling into the driveway, she felt a mix of exhaustion and exhilaration. She opened the car door and made her way inside, Jake close behind, still full of mischief as he bounced around the living room. Once they settled down on the couch, Sarah couldn't help but chuckle. Jake nuzzled up next to her, his golden fur offering warmth and comfort. This might not have been the perfect day she had envisioned, but as she stroked his fur, she felt a sense of gratitude creeping in. Life with Jake would certainly be unpredictable, no doubt filled with races and mishaps. But as she looked into those big brown eyes, she knew that as long as they faced everything together, every chaotic moment would be worth it. The sun dipped below the horizon, casting a golden hue across the room, reminding Sarah that while today might have been wild, their journey together was only just beginning. The adventures waiting for them were both thrilling and uncertain. But one thing was for sure, they would face them side by side, with laughter and love as their guiding stars. The challenge, the following weeks flew by in a blur of laughter, barked commands, and chaotic playdates. Sarah had settled into a comfortable rhythm with Jake, but amid the joy, she began to crave something more, a challenge that would deepen their bond and perhaps even showcase Jake's talents. Watching him frolic in the park and master the art of fetching sticks sparked an idea. She would enter him into a local talent show for dogs. The moment the thought crossed her mind, anticipation surged within her. This was not just about winning a trophy. It was about celebrating Jake's spirit in front of others who adored dogs as much as she did. However, she quickly caught herself spiraling into doubt. What if Jake didn't perform well? What if he made a fool of himself? But as she glanced down at his exuberant expression, tail wagging, eyes bright, her apprehension faded. They were in this together, and every adventure they faced thus far had only strengthened their bond. With determination, Sarah registered them both for the show, and the real work began. Over the next few days, she devised a routine to teach Jake a series of tricks: sit, roll over, and even a little dance. Each session was filled with bursts of energy and playful antics, but one thing was clear: Jake loved the attention. He reveled in the treats that accompanied each successful trick, but his spirit would sometimes take unexpected turns. One afternoon, as they practiced in the backyard, Sarah attempted to teach Jake to play dead. She positioned him on his back and said the command. Instead of cooperating, Jake seized the opportunity to roll over and dart off, chasing a butterfly that flitted past him. Exasperated but laughing, she watched as he sprinted after it, blissfully unaware of the lesson at hand. "All right, you little rebel," she called out, trying to hide her smile as she ran after him. "Maybe we should work on the stay command first." Weeks passed, and the day of the talent show approached faster than she had anticipated. The nerves began to creep in as they drove to the venue, a charming local park, converted into a festival scene. Colorful banners hung from trees, and people milled about, chatting and bonding over their shared love for dogs. Booths lined the perimeter, offering dog treats, toys, and even custom doggy bandanas. Yet Sarah's heart raced, knowing they would soon step onto the stage. As she parked the car, she glanced back at Jake, who was bouncing in excitement, oblivious to her growing anxiety. "We can do this," she muttered under her breath, attempting to bolster her confidence. The sun blazed high in the sky, casting a warm glow that further fueled her determination. As they entered the venue, a palpable buzz filled the air. Excited chatter mingled with the sound of dogs barking, creating an atmosphere of joyful anticipation. Sarah tethered Jake's leash to a nearby post while she checked in, her mind swirling. Would they be able to rise to the occasion? As she walked around, observing various acts, a dog that could catch frisbees midair, another that danced elegantly on its hind legs, her nerves intensified. What had she gotten herself into? Just as she was about to succumb to doubt, she caught sight of a nearby family with a young girl who couldn't stop petting Jake. He seemed to bask in the affection, his confidence radiant. "Jake," she whispered, kneeling down beside him and looking into those expressive eyes. "We're going to rock this." Their turn was drawing closer, and Sarah felt a whirlwind of pressure swirling inside her. When the announcer called their name, she felt a jolt of adrenaline shoot through her body. "Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Sarah and her lively companion, Jake." As they stepped onto the stage, the crowd erupted in a chorus of cheers and applause. The stage was set with bright lights and an enthusiastic audience, ethereal in its energy. Sarah gripped the leash tightly, willing her nerves to settle, while Jake stood beside her, tail wagging like a metronome. She began with their first trick, the command to sit. Jake obeyed almost immediately, earning a round of applause. Feeling encouraged, Sarah moved to the next trick. "Roll over," she called, and to her relief, Jake executed it flawlessly, eliciting delighted laughter from the crowd. But just as Sarah felt a surge of confidence wash over her, something unexpected happened. A loud noise echoed from the back of the parka crash, followed by frenetic barking. Jake's ears perked up, his body tense as he scanned the crowd, completely distracted. Then in an instant, he bolted from her side, racing towards the sound. "Jake! No!" Sarah shouted, her heart dropping. Panic surged as she chased after him, the audience going silent in shocked disbelief. Jake ran through the cheering crowd, dodging legs and treats, as he pursued the source of the chaos. What had started as a triumphant performance quickly escalated into a whirlwind of confusion. Sarah sprinted after him, weaving through dogs and spectators. She could hear laughter, some people amused by the sudden turn of events, while others shouted encouragement for her to catch her wayward companion. "Jake, come back," she cried, desperation lacing her words. Her heart raced, each beat a reminder of the bond they had forged and now needlessly tested. Just ahead, Jake skidded to a halt, mesmerized by a balloon that had inadvertently drifted to the ground. In a bizarre moment, he pounced on it, sending squeaks echoing across the park. The balloon groaned with every excited bite, and the crowd erupted into laughter. With a mixture of relief and exasperation, Sarah finally caught up, breathless and wide-eyed. Good boy, she exclaimed as she grabbed his collar. Jake seemed utterly delighted with himself, bouncing on the spot, completely unfazed by his brief bout of chaos. Gathering her composure, Sarah looked out at the crowd, who were thoroughly entertained by the spectacle. Chuckling, she realized that this was a moment to embrace rather than shy away from. Well, that was unexpected, she announced, laughter bubbling in her throat. With renewed determination, she decided to finish their performance. All right, let's show them our dance, she declared, and to her surprise, the audience erupted in cheers. Placing Jake in the middle of the stage, she initiated their synchronized routine, combining the tricks they had mastered, and even incorporating a little twist where Jake wiggled his body to an imaginary beat. The audience erupted in giggles, their encouragement fueling the bond that radiated between her and Jake. In that moment, the mishap transformed into magic. Despite his earlier distraction, Jake shone, his playful spirit captivating the audience. Sarah laughed and twirled, weaving around him as they executed the tricks: sit, spin, roll over, all while the crowd cheered them on. With a final flourish, Sarah encouraged Jake to jump through her arms for their grand finale. As he soared through the air, capturing the hearts of everyone around, she felt a wave of pride wash over her. It hadn't been a flawless performance, but they had turned chaos into an unforgettable moment, sharing laughter with those watching. When they finished, the applause echoed through the park like thunder. The happiness in the air felt like a warm embrace. And as she knelt beside Jake, wrapping her arms around his furry body, she knew in her heart that this day would be forever etched in her memory. "What do you think, buddy?" she whispered, ruffling his fur as he licked her cheek playfully, the joy in his brown eyes mirroring her own. "Next time, let's try not to chase balloons," she teased, hugging him tighter. The day may not have gone as planned, but together they had faced the unexpected with grace, transforming potential disappointment into a delightful triumph. As the sun began to dip on the horizon, casting golden rays across the park, Sarah reflected on their adventure. Each time they faced uncertainty together, their bond grew stronger. Jake was more than just a dog. He was her companion, her partner in a whirlwind of delightful chaos, and she wouldn't trade it for anything in the world. With hearts full of joy and laughter still resonating in the air, they stepped off the stage as champions of fun, ready to embrace whatever chaos awaited them next. The bonding experience. The days following the talent show were filled with a rich warmth as the bond between Sarah and Jake deepened immeasurably. They basked in the afterglow of their performance, replaying their moments of chaos and joy. But as other responsibilities crept back into Sarah's routine, she felt a longing for deeper connection, a rekindling of the magic that brought them together. One chilly autumn afternoon, Sarah found herself wrapped in a blanket, sinking deeper into her sofa as rain pattered against the window. She glanced at Jake, who was sprawled out beside her, one paw resting on her leg. The world outside seemed gloomy, and she felt an ache for closeness growing inside her heart. With the talent show behind them, she wanted to create memories that would linger, ones that solidified their partnership beyond tricks and performances. "Let's have an adventure, Jake," she said softly, a smile blooming on her face as she got up. His ears perked up at the sound of her voice, his tail thumping against the floor. Without hesitation, she gathered his leash and slipped on her raincoat, a spark of excitement igniting in her chest. After a quick drive, they arrived at the nearby forest preserve, where the trees stood tall, glistening with rain. The air was rich with the scent of wet earth, and the vibrant colors of the foliage reminded Sarah of the vibrant tapestry of their bond. With the rain gentle and inviting, she unclipped Jake's leash, allowing him to roam freely. His joy radiated, bounding from tree to tree, sniffing every patch of grass, reveling in the freedom. They walked deeper into the woods, the sounds of nature enveloping them, a chorus of birds, leaves rustling in the wind, and the soft squish of mud beneath their feet. Sarah felt revitalized, grateful for the simplicity of the moment. She paused to watch Jake chase after fallen leaves, his antics never failing to bring a smile to her face. Eventually, they came upon a small clearing where the trees parted, revealing a secluded pond. The surface of the water mirrored the sky, creating a mesmerizing scene that captivated Sarah. She knelt down, observing the gentle ripples caused by the wind. Jake trotted over to her side, his curious gaze fixed on the water. "Isn't it beautiful?" she asked, glancing at him. In response, Jake dipped his paw into the pond, causing a splash that sent tiny droplets glimmering in the afternoon light. They both laughed, the sound echoing through the trees, their connection palpable. Feeling adventurous, Sarah stood up and tossed a small rock into the pond, watching as ripples spiraled outward. "Let's make a wish, Jake," she said playfully, closing her eyes for a moment. "I wish for our bond to grow stronger and for more adventures, just like this." Time slipped away effortlessly. They explored the woods, following trails and running through fields of tall grass, freedom enveloping them like a comforting blanket. But just as Sarah began to relax into the serenity of the day, she heard a low growl somewhere in the distance, sending a rush of unease through her. "Jake?" she called hesitantly, noticing his ears perk up, his body tense as he sniffed the air. The once joyful atmosphere shifted, replaced with an undercurrent of tension that set her nerves on high alert. Before she could process the sound further, something rushed through the underbrush, a blur of brown fur. It was a wild rabbit, darting across their path, and in an instant, Jake sprinted after it with a ferocity that took Sarah by surprise. "Jake, come back!" she yelled, her voice cutting through the air. But her command fell on deaf ears as he tore off in pursuit, trepidation seeping into her heart. She followed suit, racing after Jake as he barreled through the trees. "Not again," she muttered, fear edging her excitement as she navigated through the thickening woods. She could hear barking in the distance. Jake had picked up the chase, but he was losing control. "Jake, stop!" she shouted, adrenaline pumping through her veins. The warmth of their earlier connection felt distant, now replaced with concern as she ventured deeper into the trees. The dense foliage limited her visibility, branches clawing at her clothes, all while the echoes of hurried footsteps and frantic barks filled her with dread. The last thing she wanted was for him to get hurt again. After what felt like an eternity of frantic chasing, she finally caught sight of Jake, who was now tangled in a mess of thorns. The rabbit had disappeared, a mere shadow in the underbrush, while Jake whined, seemingly confused and irritated. Sarah's heart raced as she hurried to him, relief flooding through her as she knelt to help free him. "Jake, you silly pup," she exclaimed, carefully picking away the prickly branches. He squirmed with excitement, but also with agitation, eager to bolt again. "Just a moment." "Hold still!" With gentle persistence, she managed to untangle him, his beautiful golden coat marred only slightly by a few scratches. As they stood together, panting and a bit frazzled, Sarah couldn't help but chuckle through her panic. "We have to stop meeting like this," she teased, rubbing his head affectionately. But as the laughter faded, she sensed a flicker of unease tugging at her heart. The low growling she had heard before still lingered in her mind. Just then, the rustling in the bushes turned jagged, and from the shadows, a wild animal emerged. A coyote, its keen eyes glimmering with hunger. The creature's presence froze Sarah's blood, a primal instinct urging her to protect Jake as her heart hammered in her chest. "Jake, back to me," she commanded, panic rising with each passing second. But the wild nature of the chase had already ignited Jake's instincts, and he was fixated on the coyote that silently approached. The two animals sized each other up, confusion and excitement dancing in Jake's expressive gaze. "Stay, Jake. Please," she pleaded, stepping in front of him and waving her arms. But instinct overpowered her commands. Jake growled in return, poised and ready, unaware of the danger that loomed. In a moment that felt like an eternity, the coyote took a tentative step forward. Sarah's heart dropped. Time danced around them, the forest falling silent. The air waited with anticipation. "Please," she whispered, her voice trembling. Just as Jake launched forward with a spirited bark, the coyote hesitated for a second before darting away into the thick underbrush, fleeing into the safety of the woods. The moment stretched, with both Sarah and Jake frozen in place, adrenaline coursing through their veins, the remnants of the encounter thick in the air. "Jake!" she exclaimed, yanking him back, the weight of relief echoing in her voice. They breathed heavily, their hearts racing, as they shared a moment that cemented their understanding of one another in ways they hadn't anticipated. "You can't chase every animal you see. That was dangerous." Jake turned to her, as if he sensed the gravity of what had just transpired. Licking her hand, he settled down beside her as the adrenaline of the moment gave way to tenderness. In that instant, Sarah realized how much they relied on each other not just for companionship, but for protection and understanding. After some time, they began making their way back through the winding trails, the sun filtering through the leaves, casting a warm glow upon them. Sarah felt the weight of the day's events settle around them, a mix of fear and exhilaration. They had faced danger together, and they were all the more connected because of it. As they approached the trailhead, the silhouettes of trees grew longer in the fading light of the day. Looking down at Jake, she whispered, "That was too close. We need to be more cautious next time, but I'm grateful we have each other." In that gentle exchange, she found reaffirmation in their partnership, a connection that transcended the chaos, the mischief, and even the moments of fear. They were a team, unfurling their story together, learning from the experience, grown stronger with each challenge. They arrived back in the car, tired but still buzzing from their adventure. With a deep breath, Sarah looked at Jake. "I think we both deserve a treat after today," she said, her heart still racing. A dog-friendly bakery stood just around the corner, and she decided it was the perfect ending to an unforgettable day. Arriving at the bakery, the warm aromas of freshly baked goods filled the air. Sarah could feel excitement bubble within her, especially as Jake's tail wagged furiously at the sight of all the delicious offerings. After ordering a few goodies, a soft peanut butter cookie for Jake and a rich chocolate chip cookie for herself, they settled on a nearby bench. As Sarah watched Jake savor his treat, a sense of fulfillment washed over her. As they enjoyed their snacks in the golden glow of the setting sun, she realized that life with Jake would always be an adventure, filled with unpredictability, laughter, and a bond forged through the moments that challenged and defined them. With a whimsical glance toward Jake, she mused, "If today taught us anything, it's that we can face anything together, even a rogue coyote." A warm bark punctuated her statement, and they shared a knowing look, laughter dancing in the air around them. With their hearts light and their spirits unmatched, they headed home, ready to embrace whatever delightful chaos awaited them next. A bond transformed not merely by the tricks they learned, but by the challenges they faced together. Sarah and Jake continued their journey hand in paw, the storytellers of their own wild adventure, intertwined through thick and thin.